I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
Will you say this is Lou Dort and I'm down to Dort?
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
You're a big oat brand guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
You have a gallon of milk I can also take home.
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays, my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
Good morning.
Good morning. We've missed you, Al. You weren't on the pod at all last week.
Oh, I had the flu.
It's
I had the
terrible.
freaking flu. It was a pretty good one, though. I'll be honest. It was pretty mild as far as flus go.
Okay, well, that's good.
So it wasn't too bad.
Still terrible. Still terrible enough for you not to be on the pod, which is a
True.
terrible time for everybody else. So I'm glad to have you back.
Although you had a ton of guests. So many guests.
Lots of guests. I'm not typically a guest guy when it comes to this show, but I've had the itch to have some guests on.
I actually have a question from the Discord about this, Andrew. From Senator Kennedy. Said, with all the incredible guests wanting to talk Thunder on Down to Dunk lately, who would be a semi-attainable dream guest? I know Andrew has already said Coach Daignault, but is there anyone else that you've thought about being on the pod one day? Deontay Burton, Rumble the Bison, or some names he threw out.
Deontay Burton. Oh no.
Do you have anyone on your wish list? Because the balance is like you got to. There are some people that you would put on your list, but I don't know if it would be a good pod.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's like the weird balance, right? Is that it has to be good. Like I am not confident Deontay Burton would be a good podcast.
Dude, even like Presty. Like it would obviously be awesome to get Presty on the pod.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool.
Would that be guaranteed to be a good podcast? It would certainly be well, I don't even know if it would be interesting. I mean, we've heard Presty on pods before. It's not like he's going to give away a lot.
He's just the thing about it is like he's just would be way too measured with his takes and what he says. Right. Because he has to be. And so it doesn't make for like the most interesting content. Mark is definitely toward the top of my list. Just because his story is so interesting.
Christian Chenoweth, Bill Hader. I'm just trying to think of people that have been loose.
Bill Hader would be awesome.
He probably would. I don't know how much Thunder basketball he actually watches, but
that was the thing with Nate Roos is like I learned pretty quickly just through chatting with him through DMs that like he knows basketball really well. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I actually think this would be a good one. When he told me that he loved Boris Diaw, I was like, okay, let's do this.
Okay, I didn't even ask, but okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. It tells me a lot, actually.
Yeah, Nate was awesome. If you haven't listened to that show and you're like, who is this Nate guy? Like Nate Roos from the band Fun, obviously wildly famous band from the early 2010s. I think 2012 was when that their last album came out that like they won a Grammy for.
Yeah, I was looking on one of their YouTube music videos has 1 billion views.
Oh my gosh.
1 billion.
The band is so good and they're outrageously famous and Nate was very gracious with his time for us. So I very much appreciate that. from him. And the show was just good. Like I had a ton of fun. I told him before we started, I was like, oh, maybe we'll go like 20, 30 minutes. And like we went like hour 10. And I felt like we could have kept going just because he's just a basketball fan. Like he just knows hoops and he loves it. He loves the NBA. I thought it was cool that he became a Thunder fan through fantasy basketball, which is like relatable content for you and I, just because we played fantasy basketball forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really fun. He's really great.
But dream guest, PJ Carlissimo.
That might be interesting. Honestly, like take me through the hiring process. Take me through you getting let go. Why
Take
did
me
you
through having to move to Oklahoma City, like in the middle of
my
a
gosh.
coaching stint?
Right. Why did you play Kevin at the 2?
What did you think of Robert Swift? Yeah, there's actually a lot to ask PJ Carlissimo.
Give us some Robert Swift stories.
Yeah.
I'll bet you there are some Robert Swift stories. Oh my gosh. But Mark Dagnall, definitely top of the list of guests that I would like to have on that I know would be a good podcast. Yeah. Al, the Thunder, they're sitting right there with the Golden State Warriors at 23 and 24, as we all expected for both of these teams that they'd be 23 and 24 at this point in the season. They sit one full game back of the Phoenix Suns at they're at 25 and 24. They are in 7th place, as are the Dallas Mavericks, who are in 6th. So,
and the Mavs is the interesting one because 2 weeks ago it seemed like they were kind of in their own little separate tier, or maybe even in a tier with the Kings at that point.
Yeah.
And since then, they're right down with the rest of us now. They're 3-7 in their last 10.
It's brutal.
And things are looking bad. Spencer Dinwiddie having some quotes for the Wizards last night. A game that they lost to the Wizards.
Yeah. They got Rui Hachimura off their back. Now they're free. They're free.
Yeah, now they're going to fly. They are 21 and 26. 3 in a row, though, for the Wizards. Yeah, the Western Conference, the thing that I keep coming back to is that, like, you look at their next 3 games, they look like they could be challenging. In fact, there's a chance that this is like their hardest stretch for the rest of the season in terms of 3 games in a row. You could make an argument for some other ones, but like Atlanta, Cleveland, Golden State, although they are all at home, that's a pretty stretch. Let's just say they lost all 3. The thing I'm realizing is that the rest of their schedule is so easy in comparison to some of these other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if they lost all 3, it's not like they escaped this vortex and are clearly in like tank mode. They're still going to be right there because none of these teams are separating themselves either. I mean, the Timberwolves lost to the Rockets last night.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that Timberwolves loss to the Rockets, I think that was Monday night, is so bad. They made the Rockets look competent. And that's a tough thing to do. And they did it.
Nut to crack. And they did it.
Congratulations. Yeah. And Anthony Edwards after the game was saying that they just had a hard time getting into this game against the Rockets just because it's the Rockets.
Yeah, he admitted that.
Like, come on, bro. Like, this is guys, you just have to win these games. You have to. And the Thunder have 2 games against the Rockets coming up, February 1st and 4th, where it's just like you have to win those games. You have to go win those games. If you want to make the play-in, you can't split with the Rockets. Like, you need to beat them both games. Like, the Thunder are clearly a better team than Houston, and they need to go and show that. In Houston, February 1st. In OKC, February 4th. Like, go win both of those. And then they have another one, February 15th against Houston. I mean, my goodness. And then they've got 3 games against Utah. Like, don't split those. Beat Utah. If you want to make the play-in, just go beat Utah. And then
definitely.
They just you have to win those gimmies. They got another one in Charlotte. They have another game against Charlotte and OKC. You got to win that one. At the Pacers, you got to win that one. Oh, they have another one against Utah.
I think it's 4 against Utah.
Yeah, 4 against Utah. Go win all 4. I don't know that they will, but if you want to make the play-in, you have to go win all 4 of those gimmies.
Yes, the teams that when you're thinking about the Thunder making the play-in or not, there's 3 teams in my mind that are going to swing this, and it's Golden State, Phoenix, and Utah.
Yeah,
Because
no doubt.
all of those teams are right now in a similar position in the standings. We have 12 games left against those 3 teams.
Yeah.
12 of the remaining 30 whatever games are against those 3 teams. And so how those teams are doing is going to swing a lot. And I'm feeling more confident about Phoenix. I mean, they've won 4 in a row. You assume if they get Butler back that things will kind of stabilize with them and they could even push for like a top 4 seed. Golden State.
Booker.
Who did I say?
Butler.
Oh, my
I was
gosh.
just sitting here thinking, is there a Butler on the Suns? Am I going crazy?
Yeah.
Booker, when some people say Booker, it sounds like they're saying booger.
Booger.
Devin Booker.
Butler. Wow.
So
Well, it is 7 in the morning here. Golden State, I don't know what to think about. They've lost some bad games recently. And then Utah could be a swing team because all of those games are after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And I still don't really have a good feel for what they're doing.
I have no clue what Utah's going to do because you have everything from, they could sell off these pieces to, hey, I think they're going to acquire John Collins. And you're like, Arf?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they're really into John Collins. Pair him with Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, what are you doing with John Collins? Do they just see him as like this like a
value play?
Player? Yeah, just like with Markkanen, where it's like, hey, this team doesn't know what they have in Markkanen, and we're going to get him. And, Atlanta has no clue what they're doing with John Collins, which might be the case. Like, John Collins, good player, and he just is perpetually in trade discussions. Maybe there is something to it. I don't know how you play he and Markkanen together. But yeah. Oh, speaking of Markkanen, can I show you something?
Yeah. Oh, Andrew's got some Markkanen merch. It must have.
The Jazz are very excited for their.
Oh, you got the thing.
Potential
All-Star. Wow.
The
Andrew.
fit.
That's a big deal. Was that sent directly to you?
It was not.
Oh, okay, I was going to say because you don't have any impact on
I have
All-Star.
0 impact. So I'm in a text group with a bunch of people that do have impact, and
that's what you wanted.
Zach Harper was like, "Does anybody want this? Because I am going to throw it away." And I was like, "You want to send it to me? I will take it."
I feel like you could get some. There's been a lot of cool stuff over the years. I mean, I'm sure it's not cool once you get it every single year, but I bet you could get a lot more junk for your room.
I would be super pumped and jacked to just have teams sending me stuff like that. I would be very, very excited.
Now, are you disappointed that the Thunder aren't doing anything for Shea? I mean, it's kind of a foregone conclusion he's going to make it, but do you think that he could have used a little media boost?
I would
maybe a mug, a Shea mug.
I would definitely take a Shea mug. I would take a bobblehead.
Oh man, did you see that Alperen Şengün? Not to bring him up all the time, but did you see his bobblehead?
No, I did not.
So it's just a regular bobblehead, but when you bobble it, he says the line that he said on draft night: "The Hi Houston, I'm so happy." It says that over and over again. I really want it.
They hand these out at the game?
Yeah, he got his own bobblehead night.
That is awesome. Hi Houston, I'm watching it right now.
I am so happy. I want that so bad.
I would love to have that. Oh my gosh. It's kind of a terrible bobblehead, but that makes it great. Oh my, that is great. Yeah, I definitely want that. Sitting beside my Lauri Markkanen finisher.
People talk about how they've been somewhat disappointed with some of the crowds down at the Paycom Center.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get people out.
It's true.
Start doing some bobblehead nights, and I'm going to be getting I might fly home to get a dumb bobblehead. I'd be excited about that.
Bobblehead?
Yeah, there's Dort bobblehead.
What bobblehead would you want the most? If you could have a Thunder bobblehead, which one would you want the very most?
If they did a Giddy bobblehead with real, not real hair, but
His real hair.
no, not. But with actual hair, that would be pretty cool.
That would be very cool. I can't disagree with that.
Thank you.
A Dort head would be great.
Isaiah Joe. I mean, literally anyone on the team, I would be pretty pumped about. You know that they do like a Darius Baisley bobblehead.
Really? I don't know, man.
You don't know?
I don't know about that. I mean, obviously, like a Poku bobblehead that would be delightful.
Yeah, that will get fans out.
Would you fly back for a Eugene Omarui bobblehead?
I might have to just DM some people who are going, see if they can pick me one up.
Okay.
Of Eugene.
Oh, definitely the one I want the most is a Kenrich Williams bobblehead.
And that one makes the most sense. And you know what? That's actually a great lead-in, Andrew,
Yeah.
to what we're going to talk about today, because we're 2 weeks away, pretty much exactly, because it's February 9th, I believe, is the trade deadline, which is a Thursday. We're recording on a Wednesday.
Yep.
So
Tune
2 weeks
into
from
the,
now,
Athletic NBA show live. I'll be live on YouTube with Dave DeFore and Seth Partnow and Mo DeKeel talking about the trade deadline
on that Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah. So it felt like this Monday was the first they turned on the spigot and we finally started getting some little droplings, some scuttlebutt.
The dam was broken.
The dam was broken. And who could imagine there was actually a Thunder relevant topic on like day one, which was Shams was on some show. He's on some shows. I went to Upper Crust Pizza when I was in OKC.
Yeah.
And Sham's show was on TV. And I didn't even know that it was on a real, like, I didn't know it was just on TV. I thought that was like a web thing. And he was just there.
Yeah, it's through Stadium. And I don't know
which I don't know what that is.
I don't either. I don't know how that works. But yeah.
But anywho, Shams was on a show being interviewed, and the topic of Kenrich Williams came up.
Yeah.
And he said they could trade him today for a first round pick, but they've held on to him. When this team wins big, Kenrich Williams is going to be a part of it. Now, that shouldn't be surprising to any Thunder fans, because I feel like we've been talking about this for at least a year. I mean, going back to last year's trade deadline. But I did think the thing I thought that was interesting about that is, don't you feel pretty confident that didn't come from the Thunder? Like Shams and Woj, for that matter, typically don't have like insider Thunder knowledge.
Yeah.
About, and it just seemed like a weird report to have come from the Thunder. Like, can you imagine someone for the Thunder contacting Shams to let them know, oh, we could get a first right now for him if we wanted to? That just doesn't fit like the normal type of OKC leak, like that kind of like boasting.
It's a good brag, though.
It is a good brag, but for me, it doesn't fit that coming from like inside the organization.
Yeah.
Not that it matters, because I think it's true. I think it's true, but it's just, I just thought it was a weird kind of report, because the other thing is they could trade him today for a first round pick. Well, what does that mean? You know, obviously some people's mind go instantly to, oh my gosh, they're keeping him for an unprotected first. Somebody offered an unprotected first and they're just going to keep him.
Maybe like top 15 protected, top 16, 17 protected.
Maybe, who knows? We'll apparently never know. Because they're going to hang on to him. And the other thing here is that there wasn't a team attached to this. You know, there.
Yeah. Well,
so it made me just wonder, like, how real.
You know, you can name your. There's a lot of teams that'd be interested in Kenrich for a first.
Right. I did go back to last year's deadline, and at that time, Jake Fisher had a report about Kenrich Williams, and it was more from the perspective of other teams that had been calling the Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same kind of deal. It was a report, you know, in his little notebook that just said, if you want Kenrich Williams, it's going to be at least a first. So back then it sounded like they were willing to deal him, but you would have had to pay a first. And of course he wasn't expiring at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like they could definitely get a first, but they're holding on to him under that, because now he's on that awesome contract.
Yeah. And I've got knowledge close to the situation, or however you say, what is it? Sources close to the situation say that most teams know that he doesn't want to be dealt and that he's not going to be traded. So like it's not really a conversation.
Right.
That was really just like a weird brag to put out into the universe from Shams. Like, we got this guy and you can't have him, you know.
Well, I texted Andrew after it came out, and I was genuinely asking him, were you Shams' source? Because the things he said sounded word for word what you've said on the podcast.
Yeah.
It almost sounded like Shams had just listened to Down to Dunk, and then he could have been doing a Down to Dunk segment. He could have been on with us saying that same thing, and it wouldn't have been out of place.
Yeah. It'd be hilarious. It's like, local Thunder podcast Down to Dunk says. No, and I've started doing. Shams does this. We've been doing this inside pass thing for the podcast deal. So like Shams and I have gotten to know each other a little bit, but I'm definitely not his source, and nor will I ever be his source for anything, except for making a very, very quick podcast with him.
So that was the only like directly Thunder related thing where the Thunder were actually mentioned.
Yeah.
In any scuttlebutt.
Mm-hmm.
But the Thunder have been playing well lately.
They have.
If you look at their record in 2023, great. You look at their net rating, great. You would think they're one of the top teams in the NBA, Andrew. If you just go by when the calendar turned.
You look at power rankings, and like there's
power rankings.
Some people have the Thunder like number 10 in their power rankings.
Some people do have that. And that's cool and that's exciting. And as a result, I think there is a segment of Thunder fans who are saying, all right, well, we're here. If we're the 10th best team in the league with this squad, why wouldn't you go out and try to upgrade this team? In fact, from the Discord, Shales the Way asked, please discuss why we shouldn't make a move now to make our team better, or at the very least this offseason. So I thought it'd be fun to discuss this. And, you know, anyone who's listening to Down to Dunk knows what Andrew's going to say. I mean, we've talked about this before. And they probably know what I'm going to say because I share similar feelings. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to try to push Andrew and force him to answer some questions about these ideas of making a move to make him defend his position, so that you're not just listening to two guys saying, oh, Sam Presti's never going to push a button ever in his life. Okay.
The man has never pushed a button in his life.
Never pushed a button in his life. Okay, so let's start with this deadline, because I actually think that's an easier discussion.
Yeah.
Because the thing with this deadline is that they have so much dead money. Like, according to Spotrac, I was looking at it last night, they calculate it as $47 million in dead money, which is just, it's nothing. You can't do anything with it.
As they say, dead money don't make none.
That's right. Yeah, they always say that. Dead money don't make none. You can't do a lot with dead money. And as a result, as you're trying to construct fake trades with the Thunder, it gets difficult quick. Like, basically any trade has to involve Lou Dort, because he's the only contract that has any amount of money attached to it. And he's the only one that you might be willing to move. I mean, obviously the other one would be Shea, which we're not moving Shea.
Yeah.
So if you take a guy like Siakam, who I saw Jones on the NBA, I think like a week or two ago, was talking about like some team needs to go and overpay for Siakam. He's an amazing player, blah, blah, blah. And some in the comments was like, what about OKC? He was like, yes, absolutely, they should do it. You can't even like do a deal. You can't make one right now because of how much dead money there is.
Dead money don't make none.
Maybe you can do a deal where you pile up like 5 or 6 of OKC's young guys, but it's so hard to get to that money right now. So the guys with huge contracts, you just can't even think about it right now. It's not feasible.
And they wouldn't do the Siakam deal anyways. Even if the Raptors were calling and just begging them, like, please just take a Pascal Siakam, you know, like, it'd just be like, no, we're not. That's not where we're at. Sorry.
Well, if they were begging, we might, just to be nice, Andrew.
No, I think they would shut it down. Hang up.
Okay, well, we're gonna come back to that. I'm only talking about this deadline right now.
Okay.
So then the other thing at this deadline that everyone is wants to get very excited about is OG Anunoby, who is 25. He is an expiring contract next season because he has a player option in that that final year of his contract. You can make the money work because he doesn't make nearly as much as Siakam. You could do a deal in the realm of Dort, Baisley plus Hicks. And there was some reports on OG this week. So first you had the Bob McCowan podcast, some guy, insider, up in Toronto.
The Bob McCowan.
I meant to look up who Bob McCowan was.
I don't know what the Bob
He's a Canadian radio personality, okay? And he's wearing sunglasses in this picture and a leather jacket. So I take that to mean he's their like Traber. Okay? Is that helpful?
Oh my gosh, he looks more like their Al Ashback.
Yeah, okay, he might be their Al Ashback. He is best known as the longtime host.
Talking right now, and it is feeling less credible the longer that I watched this video. Okay, continue. I can't do this.
I'm on his Wikipedia. Bob McCown. Other names: the Bobcat. Okay, so we're talking about the Bobcat here. He is best known as the longtime host of the Canadian sports talk show Primetime Sports.
He is squinting while wearing sunglasses on camera. Okay, keep going.
He needs to get a better tint on those to avoid that. So, anyways, he's a guy. Okay, his quote this week was, "I talked to an NBA insider yesterday. This is a guy I've known for years. He tells me Anunoby wants out of Toronto. Take that as you will." Oh, that was from somebody on Twitter. Anunoby wants out of Toronto. That's something we heard last summer. We talked on Slam and Jam about that.
Yeah.
When Portland was interested in Anunoby. I don't think it's surprising that OG Anunoby might not want to be in Toronto long term. And that of all of their players that they might move, after you get beyond like the expiring guys like Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet, OG is the one who they might actually move, who has, more than a year left. He has a year and a half left on his current deal.
Yeah.
Because we've heard this for a while. The other thing that came out is Bruce Arthur. Now, you do know Bruce Arthur.
Bruce Arthur, a little more credible than the
Bobcat?
Than the Bobcat, the Al Ashback of Toronto.
Bruce Arthur from the Toronto Star. He wrote an article, which... funny, he started off, you want to be Oklahoma City to draft picks in bunches? Because he was talking about what do you want to do as Toronto Raptors fans?
Yeah.
At least one team has previously offered 3 first-round picks for Anunoby, and Siakam is worth more. Now, he obviously didn't say who the team was. He didn't say what kind of first those were.
Yeah.
But knowing that last year Presti gave 3 picks for Ousmane Dieng, I think we can probably assume that the 3 first-round picks offered for OG Anunoby were probably worth a little bit more, at the very least, than those picks for the 11th pick, or whatever that was.
Possibly, yeah.
Basically, let's just assume this is correct. So now we're going back to our deal. We're talking about Dort, Baisley, and 3 first-round picks to kind of get in the conversation. And there's a chance that Toronto doesn't even want Dort, that he doesn't fit what they're trying to do long term.
Right.
So that is like the type of deal you would have to do right now to get OG Anunoby, a guy who, again, only has a year and a half left on his deal. So the point being, like, making a deal at this trade deadline, you're going to be overpaying, or you can't make the deal because of their current money situation.
Yeah.
Would you generally agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, in a deal like that, it's like, why are you making a win now move today when you don't have Chet? You don't know what this team looks like next year. You don't know what internal improvement you could have. You have all these lottery picks on your team, one of which you just have no clue how his career is going to go. Like, we have a decent idea of like J-Dub, like, oh yeah, definitely an NBA player. This is great. Like, he's part of the crew. Ousmane Dieng, like, just frankly, just don't know. And then you're going to bring in a guy who plays the same position as that guy? Like, come on. And like people, and I know that some people are like, well, I'd just rather have a guy that I know is going to be good. There's a chance that Oos doesn't work out, and that the right decision would be to get a guy like OG. But the problem is we just don't know that. It could be the exact wrong thing to do. And like the Blazers a long time ago, didn't quite know what they had in a guy in Jermaine O'Neal, and they let him go to Indiana, and he became an all-star and like one of the best players in franchise history in Indy. And so like you don't want to let go of a young guy too early just because like you are a 500 team. And that's the other thing is like this is not a team that's like 12 games over 500.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the Grizzlies, which is so funny because during the early parts of this rebuild, I felt like the Grizzlies were a team we were kind of opposing. Like they were the example given, even though it didn't make a lot of sense because they still got like a number 4 pick and a number 2 pick. But they were always given as the example of like this team didn't really have to tank. Like they were barely down. And they're showing that you can just draft guys later in the draft and build it up. And now, 2 years later, the Thunder are actually looking closer to what the Grizzlies did than any other team. Like we were more focused and everyone else was more focused on the process Sixers. Is like, this is going to be an extended, 3 to 4 year tank. Yeah. And then we turn the corner. It's starting to look closer to what the Grizzlies have done. The reason I bring that up is because you look at the Grizzlies, like all these conversations make more sense to me for the Grizzlies right now. Like in a wide open West where they are right there with Denver. There's all these teams, whether it's Phoenix or Golden State, who are just can't get it together. The Clippers just can't get it together. The Grizzlies have a real opportunity to push a button right now with some of their future draft assets and with their young guys to make a move. And I think if OKC was in that position, it would make a little bit more sense to me. At the same time, we all kind of know Memphis isn't even going to do that.
Yeah.
Memphis probably isn't going to make one of these deals. The OG deal with Memphis actually makes more sense to me.
Yeah, you go win the West if you are able to deal for OG and you basically give out young potential and draft picks back to Toronto, like Santi Aldama or whoever.
And that's like the gulf for me right now.
Like,
we are not in the Grizzlies' position yet.
No,
if
they're not
they
going to
were,
like, what are they going to do? Like, you deal for OG Anunoby, and let's say it is Dort, Baisley, and picks. Like, realistically,
and you probably have to give up at least one of the really choice picks.
Yeah, there just ain't no way. There ain't no way. What are you going to do? Like, maybe that propels you, and you make the actual playoffs, and you lose in round 1, and then you add Chet, and then you're a much better team. But I still just don't know how you develop the guys that you have. I just still don't know how you develop the guys that you have if you deal for a guy like OG. And then you extend him. Like if he's like, oh, I love it here. One, it's been well chronicled that OG was not a huge fan of coming to Oklahoma City, even on draft night. So you think he wants to come here now to play? Like, what fiddle is he playing? Third fiddle on this roster?
That's the other thing that I think about too.
Fourth fiddle next year? Really?
Because the thing with OG in Toronto that has always come out is that he wants more touch. He wants to be a bigger part of the offense. He doesn't like having to be like definite third guy behind Siakam and Fred VanVleet.
Yeah. And
so what is the plan there, bringing him to OKC? Why is he going to be so much happier in OKC? The other thing I think about...
Play the Dort role? No.
Well, actually, the Dort role's been pretty good for a couple of years.
I know, but it's like, how many shots is OG taking per night in Toronto?
He is taking 14.
Yeah, and Dort is... I think Dort's either there or I think he's less than that. Lou Dort's 11.9.
Yeah, like OG would definitely be taking a step back, probably in terms of shot attempts coming to the Thunder.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
Want
that.
The other thing about OG is that one of the reasons why so many people like him is because he's on such a good deal right now. Like OG Anunoby at $20 million is incredible.
It's great.
I think there's a legit chance that he's going to be making like 35 on his next deal. I'm not even joking. 35 on his next deal. If teams truly are willing to give up 3 first-round picks for OG, they are willing to pay him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think next summer, OG on whatever his next deal is going to be, people are going to have different opinions on OG all of a sudden. In the same way that, like, when the Wizards give Kyle Kuzma whatever they're going to give him this summer, which apparently they've locked into stone now because they traded Rui. They basically said, hey, we're going to have to give you whatever you want because we have no backup plan. We're going all in on Kyle Kuzma. All of a sudden next year, people aren't going to have the same opinion of Kyle Kuzma when he's making whatever he's about to make.
The Wizards just they want to be who they are forever.
Okay, that was this deadline though, and I'm in lockstep with you there. Where I do think it gets interesting is this summer, because
Can I propose a trade deadline trade for this trade deadline?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Darius Baisley
Okay,
to the Phoenix Suns
for
their first for the 2025 second round pick and Dario Saric.
Yeah,
They trim about $4 million off their tax bill. They get whatever Darius Baisley is to them. Who knows? And the Thunder can do whatever. If they want to play Dario, cool. If they want to waive him, cool. Whatever. But it's a cost-saving move for Phoenix. It saves them a bunch of money, and the Thunder can get a second essentially just for taking on the extra money.
Do you think that will satisfy some of the segment of Thunder fans that we've been talking about that kind of want them to make a big move?
I don't know. I mean, Saric would actually fill a role for this team. Don't you think?
I don't know. He's an expiring.
Yeah. Or you could just waive him and then he could go sign with a playoff team. Whatever. He's not been very good for Phoenix this year. But like essentially you just acquire another second. And if you can push it out to 2025, the deal would be to get the second round pick. It's not to get Saric. It's not to like, oh, let's bolster the center position for the Thunder for the playoff run. No, it's find a way. And it's like you're not getting a second for Baisley, but you're getting a second in a Baisley deal.
Right. And it doesn't hurt OKC.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt their long term cap. And for Phoenix, you know, new ownership saves a little bit of money on this team that hasn't been very good. And you get to see if a young, athletic, big can help your team. You know, he had a ton of success, Baisley did, specifically with Chris Paul here, his rookie season.
Yeah,
so
he did.
You throw him on Phoenix. You just try to see if he's got anything at all. And if he doesn't, you let him walk this summer. And if he does, you can probably have him for pretty cheap. So,
well, that's exciting. There you have it, Thunder fans.
There it is,
There's your
Thunder fans.
blockbuster deadline deal.
That's the kind of deal that I would expect. Is like, hey, let's use our remaining cap room to grab some kind of pick and then get Darius a new home where maybe he can have more of a consistent role kind of thing. So,
okay, let's move to the summer, and this is where I'm going to start pressing you. Because let's start here.
Press me.
Let's start here, Andrew.
Okay.
They're going to have cap space this summer.
Yeah.
Correct?
Sure. Yes. Fact.
They are.
Yeah.
Say yes.
Yes.
Fact. I think it's somewhere around like 25 million. It depends on a few things, like where the pick ends up. They're not like the Spurs or the Rockets who have gobs of money, but they have a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And arguably the most amount of money they're going to have in a summer for the foreseeable future.
Sure.
Have you ever seen Sam Presti let that much cap space go to waste?
So I've had similar feelings. Summer of 2010, I had similar feelings. Like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity at hand for the Thunder. There are so many guys available on the free agent market. Maybe we could get in. Maybe we can get a
Who do you
meeting.
think you wanted back then?
Oh, I definitely thought, look at our young core. We could surely get a meeting with Chris Bosh. It's like, no. We could surely get a meeting with David Lee, right? Like
Yeah.
Carlos Boozer. Like, can we get a meeting? And the answer is just like, no. And in fact, what they did was they used a huge chunk of that cap space and gave it to Nick Collison. And they signed him to a deal that was like front loaded, and it just ate up like any hope of anybody. But the truth behind the scenes was there was no chance of them getting a meeting with any of those guys and them actually doing anything with the free agent market that was significant. So, yeah.
Okay. But so you kind of agree, though, they're probably going to do something with this cap space.
I don't know that.
You really think Presti's going to go into next season with like $25 million in room and just let it go to waste?
I'm not sure.
After everything he's done over the last couple of years, he has used like every ounce of the cap space when he could. Obviously, last year he couldn't at some point. But like for a team on the rise, when this might be the only time you have cap space in this whole cycle, like this, especially this much cap space, to just let it completely go to waste, I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, I could see them using it for a trade to like take on a distressed asset and get picks further down the road again. But but not to bolster the roster this summer. No.
So if you don't think there's any chance, and actually let's not even think about it in terms of probability. Do you not think there's any potential value in, let's say, signing Cam Johnson to an offer sheet?
Oh gosh, I would not. No, I don't think that's happening.
I know you don't think it's happening, but why wouldn't you do it?
I mean, eventually they're going to have to pay their guys.
I know, but they're going to have to pay their guys, but they're not going to have to pay them right now. And this is your one shot to use that cap space to get somebody in. And even if that player that you bring in isn't the absolute dream perfect player, you're also going to need contracts going forward to make the kind of star trade that you want to do. Where are those contracts going to come from?
If they want to make it. I mean, I don't have any indication that there's like a star trade on the horizon. I mean, I think that they like a lot of the guys.
But you also know that they can't use all of these picks. They're not going to be able to use all 4 of the picks in 2024.
Yeah, it's true. I just don't. One, is Cam Johnson realistically going to sign an offer sheet with Oklahoma City?
Maybe. Why not? Why not?
It would be that would be monumental. Monumental.
CJ Miles.
Yeah, CJ Miles. Sure. CJ Miles. Sure. That would be pretty monumental. That a free agent with the caliber of Cam Johnson would actually think about signing with Oklahoma City. That would be monumental. Like, that would be shocking to me.
You'd be shocked.
I would be shocked, yes. Because he's a really good player that's going to command a lot of money. And obviously he would fit really well with this team. Like, there's no question about that. But he's also taking minutes from young guys. We also don't know what pick they have in this upcoming draft and who that's going to be. There's a lot of good forwards in this draft. And if they draft a forward, there's just ain't no way that they would do that. Even if Cam was on the doorstep, just banging on Sam Presti's door. Just, Sam, let me sign an offer sheet. I just don't know that would happen.
The other name, I think this name's sort of interesting, is Grant Williams. because
Yeah.
Grant Williams is going to be a restricted free agent with Boston. Boston obviously has a lot of money on the books. Grant
Mhm.
Williams offers kind of the ideal combination of size and shooting next to Chet,
Yeah.
which he's kind of in some ways like a fully realized version of JRE, of
Mhm.
like what I imagine JRE would be like next to Chet.
Mhm.
Again, like I feel I went into this discussion, not this one, but when I
Mhm.
was talking to people on the Discord,
Mhm.
feeling the way you do, which is basically like they're not going to do anything. But
Mhm.
when I started to think about the cap space and how precious that cap space is, and how precious they've treated that cap space, and how they've tried to wring every last value that they can out of that cap space over these last couple of years,
Mhm.
for them to not make a significant deal, or at least try to make a significant deal this summer, I don't know. It almost feels like that would be kind of out of their personality based on the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's where I still see like some distressed asset, some team that needs financial help that they swoop in and say, "Hey, give us a first in 2028 and we'll do it."
For a guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For just some like distressed asset that you either keep or waive or whatever. Like I could see that. I just don't see them upgrading the roster this summer before you even see Chet and Shea play one game together.
So I want to bring up another angle to this, which is when we did the summer slam, we talked about how it seemed like, at least until 2015 deadline, that they were operating under the assumption that Kevin Durant was going to stay, that he was going to sign his next contract.
Yeah.
They were making decisions somewhat based on that,
Mm-hmm.
which you kind of have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw what the potential downside of that is when that player can just leave at the end of their deal.
Yeah. True.
How do you think they should approach SGA? Because if you take that same mindset, everything you're saying makes sense. You know, like why would you need to upgrade right now? You know, we have to assume that Shea is going to sign his next deal. Otherwise, you're going to make some crazy win now move. But at the same time, you know, after this year, she's going to have 4 years left. As we saw with KD, that feels like a super long time.
Mm-hmm.
But when Ibaka gets injured, when Westbrook gets injured, all of a sudden the actual window where you have a chance to do something gets shrunk significantly. So how do you feel about the idea of planning for Shea to leave versus planning Shea is to stay, like being in that mindset?
I mean, you could start making win now moves as soon as the summer of 24 with you're going to have 4 first rounders. You're going to have hopefully a season of seeing what Chet and Shea look like together, knowing what J-Dub's development is in year 2, seeing what Giddey is like in year 3, knowing if you have anything in Usman Jang. I think that you'll at least know that you have something in Us after next season, whether that's good or bad or whatever. Then I think you have a better idea of what you might need. You also have a better idea of what the Western Conference looks like with as far as like competition, like what do the Mavs do? How are the Pelicans looking? Can they, you know, stay healthy for any stretch at all? What does Denver look like? Obviously the Grizzlies as well. Like you have a better idea of what that all looks like, and you have a better idea of how competitive you are. Like if they go out and they win 50 games next year, the Thunder do, then like, and they're in the playoffs and they have home court advantage and things are looking really good. Then the summer 24, like, yeah, like I think you should be one. You're not going to use, if you're that good, you're not going to use 4 first rounders if they all convey. Like you're just not going to use all 4. There's not roster space for them. If your team is actually good, you're not using all 4. And some of those might have like tremendous value. I mean, the Utah pick and the Rockets pick could be extremely valuable if they both convey. And
and going back to the OG deal, like just imagine that report is true that they want 3 first and they demand the Houston first as part of that.
Yeah.
Like, are you really willing to give up on that shot
Heck no. And you may pick somebody with that pick and say, hey, we're going to add the 6th pick to this Thunder roster, and he's perfect for what we need, and he's young and he's going to be great, and you still find a way to like develop slowly while being good. Great. Or somebody comes on the market, Brad Beal comes on the market, and he's like, Brad and Mark Dagnall have a relationship, like a really good relationship. And so he's like, yeah, I would go play for Oklahoma City, if they would if they would trade for me. And then like you find a deal for a guy like that, like sure. Like then something like that could happen. I'm not saying that would ever happen with Bradley Beal. But I'm just thinking like who would be available that would like pique the interest of Thunder fans at that point. And maybe Beal's too old, honestly, to fit with this team, but like who would it be? I don't know. But yeah, at that time you're going to have so much ammunition. You have those 4 picks to play with. You have picks out in the future. You're going to have a better idea of who's good on your roster and who's not. And then you can make a trade. Even if Jang like doesn't have a very good season next year, he's still going to have like some like interest from other teams, just because it's like this guy's still really young and developing, and you can't just find 6'11" guys that can handle the ball like this and pass and whatever. So at that time, like you could make a trade, definitely. But like this summer, just no on like all fronts. Like there's just no way.
So I wanted to bring up an idea that was in the Discord. I believe Justin brought it up, and I've already shared it with you. But I just thought it was kind of funny. After all of this talk, it would be kind of like the classic Presti move, and it is to trade for Chris Paul this summer. And the reason is because Chris Paul has 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
Only has $15 million guaranteed for next year.
Yeah.
If you waived him. And then the last year, if you kept him next year, the last year is zero money guaranteed.
Yeah.
So he is a player that would not affect your 2024 summer of 2024 cap space.
Yeah.
Because he could be off the books by then, not affecting you in any way. Meanwhile, for the Suns, I mean, there's already been reports. Mark Stein had a report about Chris Paul, basically saying like they're already assessing their post-Paul future, identifying Terry Rozier, Emmanuel Quickley, Fred VanVleet as potential trade targets. If they're going to make a move like that, they're going to need to free up some money, because even though they have a ton of money coming off the books this summer, it's all of their smaller deals. They're still going to have Booker. They're likely still going to have Ayton, which that deal suddenly looks less movable than everyone thought it was going to be in the summer. Yeah, and they're going to have to decide what they want to do. Well, obviously, Mikal Bridges is going to be there. And they still have to decide what they want to do with Cam Johnson. Like, if he's really going to get 25 plus per year, all of a sudden, they're like a pretty big tax team. And then they have this Chris Paul thing, meanwhile, wanting to bring in someone like Fred VanVleet.
Mm-hmm.
So could you potentially get a first for taking Chris Paul back? And would that in some way satisfy like all sides of the Thunder fan base? Because you're making this like savvy move to get a first. And then if they just kept him for 1 year, came off the bench, finishing his career in OKC. I mean, who knows, dude, like he might be at that point. I don't know.
I don't know that Chris is going to want to come off the bench. Hey, AP, they say I got to come off the bench. I don't know that we want to do that again. I could see it if Chris was just not going to be on the team.
Yeah.
I just don't see it as like it's a button of sorts, Like I just don't.
It's kind of a mini button though. Like there's no, the downside is pretty limited.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to have the cap space.
Yeah. The problem is that it's like how, if Chris Paul is your backup point guard, which is like a ridiculous sentence.
Yeah.
If Chris Paul is your backup point guard,
Mm-hmm.
how good are you really? how do you know that how good you are, I guess, is the question. Because if he's just gone the next year, well, we just had the best backup point guard in the history of the NBA. Now,
Well, but
and
we're
he's
coming off a
gone.
title in this scenario, though.
He's gone now. What? Okay, now what are we? Are we? I don't know. I don't think that they. I think they want long-term solutions, not like these like stopgaps that'll make you, like that would certainly make you a lot better.
But doesn't that goes against what you're saying? I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to find you something that isn't a major win now move. But now you're saying that they want something for the long term.
Yeah, something for the long term. Yes, if you are going to make a deal, it'd be a long-term play.
Well, then sign Cam Johnson to a offer sheet.
But nothing is happening this summer. Nothing is happening this summer.
But
Happening this summer.
as we've discussed, this might be their shot to have this much in cap space. I mean, they'll have some in summer of 2024.
It's like, what's the
But
trade for CP? Like, if you did it, what would
It's
the
unclear.
trade? What would the trade be?
So he's making 30.8, but you're going to have space, so you don't have to get all the way there, obviously. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's hard at all.
But who's in the deal? Like, who's the thing is, like, there's a lot of players that we like now on this team, and like,
Speak for yourself.
who do you trade, and what deal is Phoenix even willing to do at that point?
Andrew, they're going to have to take what they can get, okay? Because in this scenario, they're trying to clear as much money as they can so they can sign Fred VanVleet to a free agency deal. Okay.
Okay, but who is it? I just need to know, who is it?
Who they would trade?
Yeah.
Freaking Poku.
No.
For a
deal.
juicy first. Because you're helping them out so much.
How juicy are we getting here?
Poku juicy.
What's that? 17th pick?
I only said Poku just because he's making like the most money of the young guys. Because obviously you're not trading like Gideon or anyone like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could cobble together some of the smaller deals. I mean, this is going to happen, Andrew. Asking who they're going to trade. All these guys aren't going to be able to thud it forever.
Not forever, but I think that this is why you don't do something like this. You give it another year to figure out who's good and who's not.
I have some good ideas. I have some ideas of who's good and who's not, Andrew.
I
I've
think
seen enough.
I think the rest of this year and next year is going to be like way more observation than like key decision making on what the roster is. I think it's going to be way more of that than it is like, hey, let's do this deal.
All right, let me try to end this by getting you to compromise. So you're not willing to do anything at the deadline, which I actually agree with. I just think that it's.
I gave you a trade. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say.
No, shut up. That wasn't a trade. It's a seller's market. You're going to have to massively overpay, and it just doesn't feel like a good environment to make a deal right now. So I agree with you there. You're not willing to do anything this summer. It sounds like you are willing to do something in the summer of 2024.
Sure.
So why don't we compromise next trade deadline?
Next trade deadline.
Yeah. What if the team gets out to a hot start? They're like the fifth, sixth seed in the West, playing really well. A player becomes available that is kind of like a really nice fit. You have all these picks upcoming. Are you willing to press a button next February?
I mean, it's like totally dependent on who the player is and what's going out. Like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Can't get you to say anything. You're so button averse.
I mean, if it's like giving up the Rockets pick, like we don't even know what it's going to be, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't know at that point. You would have a decent idea of like
you'd have an idea of what it could be.
Are the
but it's-
Rockets right next to us at the 6th seed, and we're at the 5th seed? All right, that obviously changes things.
I would faint every morning looking at the standings if that were the case. I would be in cardiac arrest for an entire season if that were the case. Yeah, I'm not like averse to that. I just don't, again, not like some.
Yeah, listen, we're not forcing it in any of these scenarios.
Yeah, there's
We're-
no. I still just want to see the process play out, honestly, because you look at, if we go back to like the process Sixers example, like what Brian Colangelo did to that team was like, gosh.
Made them a winner.
I mean, just think of like the Tobias Harris deal. Like how long have we talked about that deal and it just being so bad?
Yeah,
for-
that's
that's one of those like middling deals, like not dissimilar to like Cam Johnson is probably like a Tobias Harris level player, a good player. Like how much do you realistically have to pay Cam Johnson to get him away from the Sixers, like, or the Suns? Like a lot. And then it's not a mid-tier contract. It's like above that where people don't want to take it. And you have to, it's just a position you don't want to be in, because how many years have we heard about Tobias Harris? All the Sixers are willing to deal with Tobias Harris. Like the last 3 trade deadlines, we've heard about that, and we'll hear about it again. I mean, it's been an albatross for them just because he's not good enough to carry the weight of his deal, but yet he's still helpful enough, but he's not helping you get to where you want to go, and he doesn't show up in the play. I mean, there's just like so many issues with that contract in particular. Like the Jimmy deal, fine. Like you take your chance on a guy like Jimmy Butler, okay? But it was the Tobias Harris deal that was just like, oh boy. Like that's the one. Like that's the deal you don't want to make.
Which
at
honestly, that sounds more like the OG deal, because if
Yeah.
you give up one of these legit picks, like let's say you give up the Rockets pick, 2 other picks, Dort, Baisley,
Mhm.
you come around to next summer, and they're like a solid playoff team. Maybe like they make the 2nd round or something.
Mhm.
Based on what you've given up, you now have to be like all in on OG Anunoby, and what that next contract would be is going to be like there's going to be sticker shock with it in the same way there was with Tobias Harris.
Yep.
Because Philly they'd given up everything. They like this is all they had from that deal. Like they had to make it work with Tobias, and so they end up giving him $40 million a year or whatever.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would be out of the question with OG. Like he's the way people talk about him makes you feel like whoever pays his next contract is going to have to pay up.
Yeah, no doubt. And do you want to have to pay that for your 4th best guy? In an ideal world, he's your 4th best guy.
And I think if you're on the cusp, again, it's going back to Memphis. Like,
yeah, if you can win
if
the
you're-
West right away,
you're winning the West, if you're right there, then maybe you can justify it because it's like, okay, we're kind of ready to go.
Mhm.
And maybe we'll feel that way about OKC at next year's trade deadline. But I certainly I don't feel that way about them right now.
Yeah. And like still the dream for me, dream scenario. Shea, Chet, Giddy, and J-Dub are your like core players. And it's not outrageous to think that all of those guys could demand max or near max money. And if you're the Oklahoma City ownership, you can't have a Tobias Harris contract on your books and pay all of those guys.
You can't have and specifically, you can't have a non-movable big contract. Like
Yeah.
the Sixers haven't been able to move that contract.
Yeah, you can't have it. And you also, this is why you just can't deal for a player right now. This is why you can't sign Cam Johnson, because you can't sign Cam Johnson and also believe that all of those guys could demand close to a max contract. Like you can't have both. You can't do
It depends. I mean, if you could get Cam Johnson for $25 million, that's probably still a movable contract, like a very movable contract when you coming under the new TV deal. I just don't know if that's going to be enough to get Phoenix to not sign. Like
Probably not.
they have a
Probably
new
not.
guy who just played $4 billion for that team. I don't think that's going to make them stop matching that offer.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think you're getting him, and if you do, you're making an offer that's just so outrageous that you're going to be Tobias Harris. You know, you don't want to be that. If you really believe in Shea and Giddey and J-Dub and Chet, and that's not even factoring in like who they can get in this next draft or who they get in the summer of 24 in the draft or Usman Jang's development. Like, we just don't know about those. But like, you better believe Josh Giddey's getting a max contract extension. Like, just book it. Like, that's happening. Chet, if he's even anywhere close to what we think he is, book a max contract extension for him as well. J-Dub, if he continues to develop and gets a lot better, you're going to be close to it. And you can't screw up your financial situation right now, and you can't mess with it even because you have cap space. You have to think a little bit, because I mean, and honestly, like, how fun and like satisfying would it be if those are your 4 best guys and they take you to the conference finals at some point in the next like 4 years? Like, that would be amazing. And I think that it's not impossible. And so there's so many reasons why you take this slow. The biggest reason right now is you have no clue what you have. You have no clue what you have. And I don't think the Sixers exactly knew what they had either, because their guys, Embiid and Simmons, were still really young. But what you do too is, if you make that deal now, with a deal like that, with a Cam Johnson, with even a Chris Paul, it's like expectations will start seeping in more. I still don't think there will be a ton of like, if the Thunder don't achieve this, then it's disappointing next season. I think the year after that, that's possible. Next year, I don't think there should be a whole lot of that. And so,
I mean, if they don't make the playoff, I do think there's going to be expectations next year.
I mean, even if they're in the play-in next year, I don't think, like, let's say they miss the play-in this year and they are like the 7th seed next year, and they're like a good team. Is that disappointing?
Not if they if they don't make a deal.
Yeah, and I don't think they will.
Yeah. I do think people will be, if they are in this position next year, I think people will be upset. It all depends, because like 7th next year, if the Western Conference looks like this, yeah, I think it would be disappointing. If they're just hovering around 500 again, there's going to be expectations on this team going into next year.
I just don't think there should be like heavy expectations on this team next year. They're ahead of schedule right now.
Dude, I'm just telling you what the fan base is going to be like.
I think it's insane. But
I don't. This is what it's going to be like. They should get ready for it. And that's why I think
I don't think it's quite time yet. I think the going into 24-25 is when it's like, okay, like now it's time. Now it's time to go.
Andrew,
I just
get ready.
Next year
Get ready, Andrew.
we haven't even seen Chet play 1 minute of NBA basketball.
We saw a game in Salt Lake City. Okay? It's all we needed to see.
I think it'd be insane to have, like, I mean, if they're,
Haven't you said that you might think they win 50 games next year?
I don't think it's impossible. I don't
Look
think
at
it's
you.
impossible.
Look at you. You're already setting a benchmark. You're already
That's
raising expectations, Andrew.
Definitely not a benchmark.
You're wearing a hot dog costume asking, we're all trying to find the guy who's doing this. You're the one setting the bar high. You're the reason we have expectations.
If I were to give a prediction for next year, I think I'd pick them for like 42 wins.
Gross. Higher.
I mean, I picked them for 27 this year. I was dead wrong. But I would not, if they're at 500 or a little above, I mean, you're working in a 21-year-old center that's never played NBA basketball yet. Like, I have big expectations for Chet, but like, I would like to see it first before I'm like, okay, this is going to take them to the promised land. I also want to see Josh in year 3. Like, he's had a big jump in year 2, but year 3 is typically like the year that things really start to come together. And so I'm so curious to see what that looks like for a guy like Josh, who's going to get stronger. He's still only 20. Like, that's still just insane to me. Then like JW year 2, what does that look like? Like, I don't know. And then Shea, like, I think Shea's still going to get better. You know, Shea's only 24. I think that he'll get better too. So, like, what does that look like next year? Like, there's a higher, definitely a higher ceiling than this year for next year's team. But I would still temper my expectations to like wins in the 40s next year. But we didn't expect that Thunder team to win 50 games either that first year. Just like, that would have been insane, like preseason, to predict something like that.
Well, this is one of the like subplots of the rest of the season, because how the rest of the season goes is going to set up the expectations for next year. I mean, they're already going to be high in my opinion, but if they, they're 8-3 right now in 2023. If they really do this and make the play-in, that is going to set a benchmark for the team that they must now always reach. They can never fall below that. Like, anything below the play-in going forward will be a huge disappointment. And so that is the other part of the rest of the season that I'm very excited about, because that is going to kind of set how we feel and how we talk about this team this summer.
Yeah.
Because if they finish as hot as they've been in 2023, the train has left the station, Andrew, at that point. Okay.
They get home court advantage in the playoffs is what happens if they played this well.
Well, yeah, that's true. If that happens, Andrew might be more open to making a deal this summer. Let's say that.
If they get home court advantage in round 1 of this year's playoffs,
you'll be open to a deal. Okay,
I will be more open to a deal.
Okay, we at least we've nailed you down that we can expect a more juicy trade deadline next year, because assuming things go well, you will be more open to discussing it and not give us Dario Saric and a 2nd round pick.
Hey, that's pretty. This got some juice for me.
Zero juice. That's a lemon that you left in your fridge and it's been there like 3 months.
And it's shriveled up.
Like, maybe I can get one more drop out of this. No, not good enough.
Regardless of all of that, though, this team is crazy fun. And the No Dunks guys talked about it yesterday. Gave us a little shout out on their podcast.
Hell yeah.
That was great. That was cool. But this is Andy from The Office, when he says, like, you wish that you knew you were in the good old days, whatever the quote is, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This is it. We are in, like, welcome to the beginning of the climb up the mountain. And I promise you, this part of Thunder fandom is the most fun part because of the lack of expectations.
So you're saying it's all downhill from here?
I'm saying that expectations change your fan base. Or, I mean, the Thunder would get to the Western Conference Finals and it would feel disappointing. That, you know what I mean? Like, you hit the point where, like, the expectations are, and the Thunder did it to themselves by being so good so fast, where they get all the way to the NBA Finals, just in what felt just like the snap of a finger, like they're in the finals. And then from there, it's just, when you hit a certain point, you have to either get there or exceed it to, like, satisfy the fan base. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's why, like, Atlanta is miserable right now, because they made the Eastern Conference Finals. And now, like, fandom for a Hawks, it's miserable. It's awful because of the expectations that were put on them. And you, like, almost, the Grizzlies are still in a really good spot because they haven't, like, they've exceeded expectations, but not, like, so drastically like the Hawks did, where they got to the conference finals to where it's like, all right, we gotta get to the finals now. Like, the Grizzlies can still, like, work their way up there to a degree, to where, I don't know, like, a round 2 exit this year for Memphis wouldn't be, like, unimaginable. Like, if they lost to Denver in round 2, if that's where they ended up, like, wouldn't be insane, for them to do that. You'd still feel good about the Grizzlies going into next year. So I don't know. Like, this is the time that's really exciting to be a Thunder fan. This is the early 2010s for OKC, like replaying again. And I'm just saying, just enjoy it. Just try to enjoy this team without expectations, because this is a really fun team that I think is going to they're going to surprise some people in the near future. And they're surprising people now, but it's going to get bigger. Like, the stakes are going to get bigger.
And if we are in early 2010s, that means perk trade is about to happen.
The perk trade is a button, and the button will become available. And I just hope that if it's the Tyson Chandler one, like, make sure you get your second and third opinions on the guys before you just let them go.
All right, Andrew, I have to go.
Okay. Thanks so much for listening to the pod. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday.